This isn't just an ordinary cereal box. It's the most over-engineered spy cereal box you've ever seen. And I'm going to be showing you how I made it. The first and most important step is to pick the box, because all our measurements will be based off it later. But now it's time for the coding. Now this part of the project was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be, and that's coming from someone who doesn't even code. I basically used a tiny infrared receiver to detect what buttons are being pressed on this infrared remote, which then sends signal to an Arduino, which processes that signal, and depending on which buttons were pressed, I could program different output, like sequence of servos, or sound on speaker, etc. And of course all this still needs power, so we could hook up a tiny battery. After I was able to get that mostly figured out, I was able to get my very rough draft of the electronics working. CAD. CAD stands for Computer Aided Design. And it's basically just designing parts in a 3D software before sending it to a 3D printer to print. In order to design parts that fit the objects you're working with, you must first measure the objects. And because 3D printing doesn't often print perfect and often shrinks a little after printing, we have to add a little bit extra space in between the parts. Also, I didn't time-lapse myself every time, but I made a few more models than seeing this time-lapse. Then, I sent the models off to my 3D printer to print, and I have a pretty fast 3D printer, so this took almost no time at all. Once I was done printing a few pieces, I fit them with electronics to make sure they fit, and luckily, they all did. Here I was trying to make a little bucket to dump cereal, so what I'd do is I first modeled and 3D printed the bucket, and then I tried plastic welding the servo onto the 3D printed plastic, and add a little bit of super glue to help. And it worked perfectly. Then I had to cut a hole in the cereal box, which would become a door later. Once I cut open the box, I marked a spot for the cereal dumper to go. And this took a surprisingly long amount of time. Right here I'm attaching the servo to a little extender to ensure that the box has enough room to tip over. This looked like it worked pretty well, but cereal would actually get stuck inside the box, so I had to make a cardboard ramp out of cardboard and hot glue, which reminded me a lot of 5 Minute Craft for some reason. Anyways, glad that's over. Now it's time to test it out and see if the ramp actually helps. So I loaded in the cereal, and yep, works perfectly. For this next part, I wanted to be able to make a foam dart fire outside the box. So I hot glued a servo to the wall of the box, except it did not work for a while. So I ended up gluing it on the back, and it worked ever since. Okay, so I finished up most of everything that goes on inside there. I'm not going to show you what's happening because I can save it for the end. But now we have to find a way to hide all of this stuff inside there. And that might be a little bit complicated because I can't just slide it in, because there's not really enough room for me to fit my hand in the box and connect up all the wires. So I think I'm going to cut off the bottom section of the box and then glue that to it. And that's exactly what I did. I cut off the bottom of the box and then I glued the electronics on top of it so it could be inserted later. I also made a false top so I could stack chairs on top to make it look like it's full. To make this tiny surrender flag, I took a Q-tip and chopped off the top. And then I took a paper towel and turned it into a tinier paper towel. And then I hot glued it together. And it worked perfectly. Then I 3D printed a little GoPro case so I could glue it directly to the wall of the box. And then I cut a little eye hole for the camera to see out of. Perfect. Okay, I don't know if you guys can tell, but there is now a camera inside that heart. Now we just have to go inside and see what we could do with it. After 2 days of work, it was finished. The over-engineered Spy cereal box. Was cool and all, but how would this work in an actual situation? Well, this is what I think it would be like. Anyways, this video was really fun to make, so if you enjoyed this video even a little bit, please leave a like, and only if you think you'll continue to watch videos like this, then consider subscribing. Also, let me know what I should mod next. I have a few ideas. Anyways, see you guys later.